Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Corey with the Meals team at Keller Williams Realty. Today, I'm here with Sherman City Councilman and local small business owner Shawn Teamann. Shawn, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me, Corey. I appreciate you guys utilizing Sherman and getting us here to the table to be able to talk a little bit about what we got going on.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on in Sherman, and that's why I wanted to have you on, is just to update everybody with development projects, growth in the area, just all of that stuff. So we're going to get right into it. I've got a couple of questions that I'm sure everybody's wanting to know. First one being, with so many people moving to the Sherman area, what are y'all seeing at the city level that's one of the major drivers of growth here in Sherman?
Sure. So Sherman is a unique community. We've got a small town feel, but we have a lot of the big city amenities. Mm-hmm. And as the Metroplex continues to expand, and we have, the highway expansion happening and the industrial base continuing to grow with companies like 26 or Finisar, and Apple making the announcement they were doing a $390 million investment here with TI and a lot of the other big industrial users, and TI being a big one that I think we could probably talk more in detail about, but bringing 3,000 jobs. Those are all things that are certainly helping push the growth. But I would say even before some of those big industrial users were announced, Sherman was already on a growth trajectory just because of the small town community with all the big city amenities and low cost of living. A substantial amount of people were moving to Sherman to drive even into the Metroplex or other places to work. And because our tax rates are low, our water rates are low, it's a great community atmosphere. When you go to the grocery store, the restaurants locally, you can see people and you talk to folks, and close proximity to the lake. And so all of those factors have substantially helped. And then we have some of the best real estate agents and brokers in the country and in the state of Texas. So that's definitely a big plus.
Yeah. Now I was talking to you not too long ago, and you were telling me about just the amount of development y'all have seen come into planning and zoning meetings, city council meetings. Can you give the viewers just an idea of, how many single family, multifamily residential construction projects are going all throughout Sherman? And then also, I think you were telling me the number of lots that have been platted for development, just kind of a range. And it was kind of astounding. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So, I think it's important to understand the history of what it used to be like before you can fully appreciate what's going on right now. In most years past, the city of Sherman would have permits on less than 100 homes a year. And there's a long time where the growth was somewhat of a neutral. We were gaining just as many people as we were losing. And so our growth stayed about the same. Sherman was really about very steady in population. They always say the threshold for like national developers and builders is roughly 200 residential permits pulled in a year. Right. We hit that number in stride. And this past year, we did roughly 325 residential permits, which is a good indicator. And if you consider where we were in less than 100, and now we're over 300. And the limiting factors with the residential permits for new construction is having enough lots on the ground.
Yeah.
So that's a great point you make there. To say, well, how many lots do we have on the ground? It's a great question. What we've seen over the last year or two is massive planned developments. Right. And planned developments is somewhat new to Sherman anyways, process of enabling developers to put in multi-use properties in the hundreds of acres range. So, they could be 300 or 400 acres, or if not thousands sometimes. We have four of those currently in the works now. Yeah. Most of them have roughly 1,000 to 2,000 residences or units on each one. Mm-hmm. And our largest one has close to 5,000 units. So when you combine all those put together, what's coming in the future, it's substantial. Absolutely. I would say each one of those at a different stage in the process. But currently we have somewhere around between the local builders And what we used to consider a big development being 150 homes, now it's moved on our radar to being a smaller development. But between those smaller developments with 100 to 150 homes and some of these larger ones with thousands of units, even today, currently on the books, we have somewhere close to 10,000 lots that have gone through planning and zoning, and that are, whether I say 10,000 units, I should say, not necessarily just lots, but 10,000 units with multifamily and single family combined.
Right.
Now,
oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was fixing to ask, what does the breakdown look like between single family and multifamily? If you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. So Sherman, historically, we feel like we have a lot of apartments here, multifamily rentals here, because our apartments are generally consolidated around each other. So when you get to a place with apartments, you feel like there's a lot of them. But Sherman had this was last year, we had roughly 12,000 or some odd single family residences and about 6,000 multifamily units. That number for a thriving industrial base like we have here in Sherman, and basically the average across most cities of our size and growing cities, you should have about an equal mix of multifamily units and single family units, and or rentals versus non-rentals. And so Sherman was kind of lopsided to the single family usage. And a lot of that has to do with us being somewhat of an independent ecosystem here north of Dallas that kind of maintains its own, right? But what we're seeing now is the industrial base is growing, and we knew this would happen because we were lopsided to the single family side. We're getting more and more rentals or multifamilies permits being pulled. So with this new roughly 10,000 units that are coming online within the next year or two, out of that, roughly 60 to 65% of that is multifamily, and the other 35 to 40% of that is single family. So that was kind of planned and to be expected.
Right. Okay. And you talked about, the industrial base that we have here in Sherman. Of course, everybody who has been paying attention at all has heard about Texas Instruments, TI, coming to Sherman and selecting, our location. And we talked about it just a minute ago, but can you talk a little bit more about what impact that has had, not only on obviously more and more residential developers coming here, but more industrial ancillary corporations that saw that and then kind of followed suit? Have y'all seen anything like that?
Sure. So it's pretty common in the economic development world that when you have a big user come, there are other ancillary services and users that want to be around those big users because maybe they provide parts or materials or different things that the big user uses. So we see that in a much smaller level in the past with some of our industry. But we actually have a term for this at the city. We call it the TI effect. Yeah. And the TI effect has a trickle down across all boards. So, if they bring 3,000 jobs, those 3,000 jobs generally produce 2 to 3 secondary jobs. And when I say secondary, I mean things like restaurants, grocery stores, all the jobs that go into helping provide services to those 3,000 new jobs or people that are going to be here. And so that creates a big bubble. So the secondary markets, of course, right now, as you guys would know in the real estate world, it's exploding and creating the increase or inflated values on property and homes. But what we're also seeing is that there is a plethora of new industrial users who provide products and or have to companies like TI and or have seen TI and 2.6 and have recognized Sherman as being a great place to do business with low cost of water and taxes and the close proximity to the Metroplex and airports, that they're looking very hard at Sherman. And our Economic Development Corporation, who spearheaded the TI project and the 2.6 project, is working with several big users now who are looking at calling Sherman home. And Sherman really, those two projects, TI and 2.6, definitely signified Sherman as being one of the technology sectors across the nation. And the TI project at $30 billion and roughly 3,000 jobs, high-paying jobs, a lot of those over 6 figures a year, certainly had people's attention. And it's one of the largest projects and the biggest square footage projects that has not only happened in the nation, but certainly in Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's incredible when you hear the news about it, and just the sheer size of that facility. It still kind of is mind-boggling to me. But anyways, so we've got all this growth coming to Sherman. We have residential development. We've got corporations. That industrial base is continuing to grow. What do you at the city level see as some of the biggest challenges or opportunities for improvement that Sherman faces right now?
That's a great question, because with rapid growth comes a lot of conversations about how do you make sure that you're prepared for that. And Sherman has been preparing on a lot of fronts for many, many years. Acquiring the water rights at Lake Texoma and treating our own water and having our own water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plant has been a top priority for many years. It's something we continue to look at. As TI and other industry comes online, there is going to be a large demand on our water system. Just that one user, TI, will roughly double the amount of water that's being used by the entire city of Sherman. And so anytime you have one user that takes up that much water, and about 70 to 80% of their water will go to our wastewater system, of course, that can create some challenges. Now, the city's working on a lot of planning and infrastructure with engineering to make sure that that we can handle that. And we do have a plan in place that will enable us to do that. But the biggest takeaway is that we had the water in the first place. We had the rights to enough water to be able to provide them the water they needed, which a lot of communities didn't have. And that's what edged us up on that list of communities to be able to provide for them. And so water infrastructure is going to be a thing that you'll hear a lot more about in the future. We have hundreds of millions of dollars in projects that will be required in order for us to get to phase 4 with TI. So hundreds of millions of dollars that should be paid for out of the increment of the growth in the water and utility rates that TI will pay. But still, there is going to be some point there where you have to choose what you put first, the cart or the horse. And so that's going to create some challenge, but we do have a good plan in place for that. Yeah. The other thing is making sure that we're taking care of our current infrastructure, making sure that our current roads and water and sewer for all of our current residents is taken care of before we spend all of our tax dollars on the new stuff, right? So I know the city council that I'm on now has prioritized that. And in years past, there was a time where road maintenance in the city had gone almost to just fixing potholes because of cost. Okay. Right. And the problem with that is roads fail at about 10 to 15 years. And so if you're on a fixing pothole only plan, then you're going to have a lot of failing infrastructure there. And so you should be on a plan to resurface those roads, like I said, about every 10 to 15 years. And that puts you at doing roughly 20 miles or so of resurfacing roads every year. We've been working our way up to that. And this year we've allocated some special funds to get us in line with doing 10 to 15 on average to touch every road every 10 to 15 years. And it's noticeable because everyone in town knows all the roads are under construction. Yep. But, we're having to play catch up for years past. And, and that was much before my time. So I don't know all the details that went into those decisions back then. But I do know that now we're doing what we have to do to make sure everyone, the roads are taken care of and we're on the right course there. Now, I will tell you this, there's a lot of challenges that come with any construction industry right now. Material prices, inflation is driving everything, and the availability of those materials. And then the city, of course, is competing with private industry for contractors and concrete and workers. And so, that certainly slows the process down and makes it more challenging. So those are some of the challenges that the municipality is going to face moving into the future, and it's facing now.
Yeah. And that's something we've definitely felt, in the residential real estate space, whenever we're working with clients who are, deciding, hey, I'm going to go new construction versus buying a pre-existing home. And, they're signing contracts with builders, and there's clauses in there, stating we may have to extend our close date. We may have to allot for, materials going up significantly in price. And it's pretty crazy to see how those supply chain shortages are affecting, that not only, you're talking about just putting up a 2,500, 3,000 square foot home. I can't imagine, hundreds of $1 million project with Highway 75. And I don't even know what the total value was on that project, but Highway 75, 1417. And then, my last question as far as infrastructure that a lot of our viewers are going to want to know is, when is Lamberth Road going to be?
Oh man, I knew that was coming. Yeah, Lamberth Road. I promise you this: Lamberth Road is a topic of of discussion at City Hall with council members of the community and city management every day. And Lamberth Road cannot get done fast enough. I've been trying to disseminate information on that along with other council members. I've quit putting a timeline on it because that project should have been done in December. It's February now, and we had some bad weather and material shortages and work labor force problems. But it's not a City of Sherman project. That's a contractor who's doing that project, and so it is affecting the City of Sherman there. But we are certainly putting a lot of pressure on that developer and that contractor. I've driven by there every day to check on the status, and they have probably 20 guys out there working every day trying to get finished up. And it appears to me that they're getting ready to start pouring concrete very soon. And so I hate to put a timeline on it, but I'm hopeful in the next 2 weeks or so that we'll start to see it look like it's being completed. So,
I had to give you a hard time about that.
No, and I appreciate that, because I promise you this: we're just as frustrated with that situation as everyone else.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add about? I mean, we talked quite a bit about Sherman. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or any comments you'd like to make before we hop off of this call?
The only comment I'd make, and I know I don't want to take too much of your time here, but on a national level, we're experiencing a tremendous amount of inflation. And I do know that that's going to drive and have some effect on interest rates. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hopeful for is I've heard recently, and Corey, you could probably tell me this. I've been hearing that the average new construction home price per square foot in this market now is roughly $200 a square foot, or somewhere in that range. Mm-hmm. And so I believe that those type of national pressures through inflation and interest rates could have an effect on all markets, and certainly ours. And so I do believe it's important for us to continue recruiting these industry users that provide higher paying jobs, so that those higher home values are being able to be supported. Right. And so we're staying focused on a city level about staying focused through Sherman Economic Development Corporation on recruiting these high-paying jobs, and those affect all of the community, because when those higher-paying jobs come in, it drives pay up for every industry, and it creates those secondary jobs which help support the local economy. So but anyways, I know that those national things are going to create other downstream effects, and I'm just hopeful that we end up averaging out in there somewhere where we continue to have an affordable cost of living, and also the industry base and jobs to support it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we see in the real estate world. There was a report that came out that DFW is in the top 10 underpriced metro markets in the nation. And so when you compare prices to other major metro markets, buyers are looking at Dallas-Fort Worth and they're like, man, what a deal. and we're seeing a lot of out of state buyers move into that area. And last week we were in a meeting with our Dallas office, and the comment that all the Dallas agents were making was, hey, if you're having trouble getting your buyer's offer accepted, y'all need to start looking up towards Sherman. There's some good deals up there. And they're talking about these, $200 to $225, $250 a square foot new construction builds that are going on, and they're calling that a good deal. So that's where we're starting to see that price continue to go up, and that demand with DFW buyers, out of state buyers. So it's all kind of a, trickle down effect, I guess you could say, of being DFW being undervalued compared to other major metro areas. So,
well, that's right. And Texas in general, of course, is obviously the place to be on all fronts with values and cost of living. But in Texas, as you're saying, Sherman and Denison is still just relative to other areas. We're one of the most affordable, even at our values now, which seem different to us, but we're still one of the most affordable places with a low tax base, low water rates, and still the most affordable housing that you can find in the Metroplex area. So, which is exciting for us and exciting for the real estate market here. And, we hope we can keep it that way.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Shawn, I appreciate your time. If any of you guys want to follow Shawn, he's got a Facebook page, his Sherman City Council page, and he does a great job of keeping us all updated what's going on here in the community, and just any announcements like that. So Shawn, thanks for all you're doing at the city level. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure all of our viewers do as well. So thank you once again.
Appreciate you, Corey. Thanks for inviting me.
You bet. Talk to you later.